We live. Subscribe. Pro Beez, delighted to be joined by an old friend once again. Benji'S Boxing. Benji, how you doing?
Hello, Frankie B. It is absolute pleasure to see you. It really is. Although I'm kind of in the midst of an identity crisis because I'm not Benji Boxing much anymore. I've changed my Twitter handle. Now at the Benji Life on Twitter, and the old YouTube channel that I used to do is currently in the midst of being changed into something else. It probably won't be Benji's Boxing channel when it re-emerges next year, but we've talked about this and we can maybe hint at it. But you know, so yeah, I'm in the midst of an identity crisis, and that's why I've got this big beard now.
Yeah, you part of the beard gang. I like that. I like that. You're part of the beard gang. It suits you, man.
Well, you know what? Thanks for saying that. I mean, the wife's not too keen yet, but I'm sure she'll come around at some point. But yes, having quite a baby face that I have when I'm freshly shaven, I seem to get a little bit more respect now with the Viking beard going on. Don't know what it is. Beards command respect. That's why, people like you so much, obviously.
You know what? What I've got to say is your channel, when you was doing the boxing on a regular basis, was like one of my go-to channels to watch the analysis, the breakdowns of fights, and generally I valued your opinion.
Well, I'm glad someone did. I'm glad someone did. But likewise, I mean, I think it was Pascal, another person that I've not seen or heard from a long time. He contacted me a long time ago and said, doing this pep talk thing, do you want to come and talk on it? I was, yeah, great. And that's kind of how I discovered you. And just to see the rise of pep talk. I mean, just before we came on, we were talking about, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. And I remember being on my honeymoon with my wife a while back. And you sent me a picture of yourself in a car with Anthony Joshua. And it was like, I showed my wife and my was, no way, who's this with Anthony Joshua that's texting you sort of thing? I said, oh, it's, Frankie, who I've been on his YouTube channel and everything. He's sort of making waves in the boxing game and everything. And she was like, this is the coolest thing ever. You know someone who knows Anthony Joshua or is interviewing Anthony Joshua. And it was like, I think at that point, I was like, this is really cool because like Frankie and Pep Talk has really arrived now. And it's, it's gonna take off from here. And I believe you've proved me right. I think it has. I think you way up there now,
Still a long way to go. Man. But what I would say is it's been hard work, and through hard work, you've got to be very consistent and persistent, and try and make your mark. So
absolutely.
No, but look, appreciated. You were one of the guys that also, provided assistance on the way. So much appreciation. But these days it's Pro Beez and it's Pep Talk UK, just riding it through. But all right, so look, we're going to help some of the people that are being furloughed at home right now and that are bored out their nut, that are worried about financial problems and that want to escape from today's problems, and talk about Canelo versus Callum Smith announced last night. And we just had a comment from one of the viewers. Is it true? It is true indeed. It's going down December the 19th, somewhere in the States. And wow, what a Christmas gift.
Indeed. I mean, to be fair, boxing has I was prepared to write boxing off for this year with everything, but the fights that Matchroom have put on, we've seen Tyson Fury's been in the ring this year, if I'm not mistaken. We've had some really good fights and things going on. I think for the boxing's worked around the furlough thing actually very, very well. And as for location for this fight, I don't see why it wouldn't happen in Vegas. That would be my first guess at where it will be.
Definitely. Well, anywhere probably where they can follow the government guidelines. Well, sorry, the COVID guidelines. I mean, we've seen it successfully happen with Top Rank. Top Rank for the Kell Brook and Terence Crawford fight, where they just managed to put together this bubble where they can stage the fights without any major issues. So
yeah.
Hopefully that's the way forward now, isn't it? Put together a bubble and then screen it, for the viewers.
Well, it works. We've seen that it works. And they've obviously made it work with the money as well, because obviously they're not getting the gate revenue and people coming into the actual arena and things like that. But I don't know who you sort of attribute to this. I mean, obviously, I think Eddie Hearn would be more than happy to take the credit for this sort of style of show. But the bottom line is, it doesn't really matter who came up with it. The fact is, it works, and we're getting big fights. We're getting big fights happen.
Right. Adam Ali he's just logged in. He says Texas has crowds, and they'll probably host it there. And that's where they did. What fight was that? A recent fight in Texas.
Oh,
what fight was that recently? Big up Pep Talk UK. Yes, thank you, my guy. Anyway, a fight was held there recently.
Yeah.
Oh, Gervonta Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz was there.
Yeah. 10,000
fans, I think it was. So it can be done.
It can be done. I'm completely confused myself. Was Tyson? When was Tyson Wilder? The last Tyson Wilder fight, was that?
February.
That wasn't this year. Was it February?
Yeah. It's been a long year. It's been a long year.
Because I said that, and as soon as I said that, I thought, have I just made a really daft? Have I just said something really stupid within the first 5 minutes of this? You know what I mean? So yeah, it just shows. So, but yeah, there are options. Whether they want 10,000 people in there, they could do it in Texas, or from what I've seen of Vegas is still quite open. A lot of people go. I mean, I love Vegas.
Me too.
I'd live there. That's where I proposed to my wife. That's where I went to see Ricky Hatton, Floyd Mayweather. That was the first time I ever went. I have an affinity with the place, but still, during current conditions, personally I wouldn't go there. But it just seems the rest of the planet, other than me, are like, nah, so let's go to Vegas. Who cares? So I think putting the fight on in Vegas, even if there was no in the arena crowd, it's still going to draw a hell of a lot of revenue into those hotels and casinos, and that's what really matters.
The fight itself, Callum Smith, no one's probably giving him a prayer against one of the pound for pound best in the world in Canelo. What chance do you give him?
I mean, look,
be honest.
Well, the honest thing, Frankie, is I'm British, and I've always had this thing where I say you've got to support the Brit. You got to, especially your underdog fighters. When a British athlete goes into an event, whether it's a boxing match or any other kind of sporting event, especially if they're an underdog, you've got to get behind your home person. You're a mad Arsenal fan, right? You're a huge fan of Arsenal, right? Mm-hmm. If Arsenal are going into a hard game, I don't know anything about football particularly, but I'm guessing that Barcelona versus Arsenal would be a difficult game for Arsenal, right? You're still going to get behind your team. You're not going to go, oh, well, they're going to lose 7 or 8 nil. You're still going to support them. You're still going to turn on the TV and get passionate about it. And I think people should do that with Callum Smith. This is a hell of a challenge. It's a mountain to climb. But you've got to get behind the British fighter. Now, taking the old British patriotism away from it, I mean, you've got to favour Canelo, really, haven't you? Because he just seems to be, if this isn't his peak, I don't know what is. I would say that Canelo is at a peak now, where he just, over the last few fights, he's been getting better and better and better. And I'm at a stage now where I'm like, well, can this guy actually get any better than what he is? The way he's developed his head movement and defense, he was always a ferocious puncher. He could, he had that he got a Mexican blood in him. He's always on the attack. His offense was always brilliant. But after that Mayweather fight, it was like alarm bell went off. You know, okay, he's not the finished article. He needs to work on the head movement, needs to work on the defense and just the overall movement and that. And he developed that in the 2 fights with Gennady Golovkin. I thought in Golovkin, he really improved his defense and things. And so I think you're looking at Canelo now, and he is the total package. There's easily an argument to make that he could be the pound-for-pound number one. If you don't have him as pound-for-pound number one, you're going to have him in top 5 pound-for-pound, in my opinion. So, yeah, he's going to be the favourite going into this. Most people are going to think that or believe that Canelo is going to win this fight. But the thing is, you as I say, as a Brit, you've got to get behind the Brit fighter. It's boxing. Anything can happen. Callum Smith is an absolute monster. I bumped into Callum Smith outside fight at the MEN Arena in Manchester. I think it was Anthony Crolla. It was Anthony Crolla fight. I mean, I'm not particularly small. I'm 5'11", and at the moment I'm probably somewhere around 14 stone, something like that. Callum Smith is bigger than me, and he gets down to 12 stone. I've got no idea how he makes that work.
Yeah,
and that could be detrimental. Because again, going into a fight with a big puncher, a big aggressive fighter like Canelo, going into that situation being weight drained is not ideal. So, but yeah, I think it's, you know, hearts with Callum Smith. I'd love to see Callum Smith win this fight, but really the head is saying more than likely Canelo's going to win this.
Wow, you heard Benji say that, man. Guys, let us know what you think. Smash that like button. Pro Beez, Benji in the building, taking your questions, reacting to the news that broke last night. Canelo will take on Callum Smith December the 19th, somewhere in the States. Right. We've got a comment from one of the viewers. Only Billy Joe Saunders can beat Canelo. That fight was meant to happen in May. Pandemic stopped it. Is that something you'd agree with?
Only Billy Joe Saunders will beat Canelo. I think, again, Billy Joe Saunders, the style of boxing that he has, I think he could cause Canelo a hell of a lot of problems. Whether he's got the power to sort of stop Canelo in his tracks, I'm not sure, because, I mean, Canelo's been in there with Golovkin, and personally, I think he's been one of the biggest hitters in the sport for a long time.
Cyborg.
Yeah, absolute monster. And the other thing is as well with Golovkin, I still remember in the first fight, I think it was round 11, Canelo's backed into the corner and just launched this right hand, hit Golovkin in the face with it. Again, he just Triple G just smiled at him, so they just walked through it. And again, like with Billy Joe Saunders, has he ever been hit with a shot like that and he's able to just walk through it? Not so convinced. But
he don't get hit, they might say.
Well,
you don't really get hit.
Well, but my argument to that is you can't go swimming and not get wet. You know, for a 12-round fight, it's a long time to go with someone that good and not get hit. But saying that, I think the argument could definitely be made that Billy Joe Saunders could outpoint Canelo. I don't think he could stop Canelo. I think there is definitely an argument there that he could really, really cause some frustrations with his movement, especially his foot movement is very good. I think it could be a very awkward, frustrating, and difficult night for Canelo. So maybe, you know, I give him a chance. I'd be hesitant to say he's the only one that can, because again, you just don't know what's going to happen in boxing. But I think with the styles, I think he could make things very, very frustrating for him. Absolutely.
Definitely. And obviously, the bigger the occasion, the more Billy Joe starts to go through the gears and put on a show and really show us what he's about. I mean, he's a very accomplished fighter. I mean, right from Southern area all the way to 2-weight world champion shows the abilities of the man. And someone I know, actually, I spoke to him this message this morning, a guy called Manny, and he used to spar with Billy Joe in the trad gym in Canning Town. It's shut down now, but many years ago. And he said, you know what? I've just done I've done many rounds with Billy Joe, and literally you cannot lay a glove on him when he's on form. He is that good. So again, some people might say, well, it depends what weight it's at. Now, if it's at super middle, then some people might say, well, the advantage is Canelo. But if it's a middleweight, which my personal opinion is, Billy Joe's a better middleweight. But again, people out there will disagree. I think he's slick at middleweight, you know. But I don't know. Boxing's it's a funny game, you know. People that you feel like are the favorites can be upset. They can be upset, definitely.
When Canelo took I'm asking for a little bit of a refresher here. When Canelo beat Kovalev, what was that at 175? Yeah,
light heavy.
It's
just crazy, isn't it? It's crazy to think that he done that light heavy.
That wasn't a catch weight. That was actually a 175 fight, right?
Light heavy. Yep.
So yeah. So the thing is, Canelo's been up there. He's now fighting Callum Smith at 168, I believe. That's right, isn't it? It's super middle. They're doing this.
Super middle. Yep.
So if he was to then come back down to the middleweight limit for Billy Joe, being the age that Canelo's at, I think that you're right. I think the issue there would be Canelo might not be 100% because of the weight. I mean, we all remember Roy Jones going up heavyweight fighting Ruiz, coming back down to light heavy. He was not the same guy. He just wasn't, you know, against Tarver. And I think the same thing could happen to Canelo. He moves up in the weights, goes all the way up to light heavy 175, comes back slightly super middle. If he were to go back to middle again, I think he could have problems with doing that. And you sort of wonder if it gets into the negotiation for that fight happening. I think there's a good chance that the Canelo team will say, no, we're not doing this at middle. We're going to do it at super middle. They're always going to try and you know, tilt the playing field slightly in their man's direction. And they can do that because he's such a big draw. He's got, you know, all of Mexico behind him. Whereas Billy Joe, you know, however good a boxer he is, he doesn't have the same fan base. He doesn't pull the same revenue.
Guys, get your questions in. Benji's in the building, good friend of mine. We're going to talk about Canelo versus Callum Smith. I almost said Billy Joe. That's wishful thinking, but that could happen in the future. Who knows? Get your questions in. Smash the like button. So look, some people might say, why now? Why has Canelo picked Callum Smith now? And some people might say he's looked at the fight against John Ryder and said, hold on a minute, there's an opportunity there. You know, I do believe you are allowed a bad night at the office, but Canelo may have got on the phone at that time to try and get that fight going because John Ryder was really good that night. You know, it was a tight one. Some people say no, it weren't tight, but it was a tough fight for Callum Smith, definitely. Okay, so GV Universe has said Callum didn't look great against Ryder at all. Something you agree with?
Yeah, I mean, that fight could have gone either way. That I remember watching that. I remember live tweeting during it was going on. I can't remember if I did an actual scorecard or whatever, but you know, when it came down to getting the two fighters in the middle of the ring for the final decision, it really could have gone either way. I don't think that John Ryder was robbed because there was a hell of a storm of, oh, it was a robbery. It was a robbery. It was too close to be called a robbery, in my opinion. But if John Ryder had his hand raised at the end of that fight, I don't think there'd have been much argument, to be honest. I think a rematch would have happened almost, you know, immediately. And I mean, this is the problem with boxing, really, isn't it? If Ryder had his hand raised, there'd have been a rematch. Because Callum Smith got his hand raised, there is no rematch. Where's the justice for John Ryder? You know, I think he completely deserves a rematch because you can't tell me that he's not working just as hard as Callum Smith is in the gym. They're both boxers doing the work. It's just one has the promotional team behind him, the other one doesn't, you know? So back to the actual point, because I'm digressing as always. But yeah, John Ryder was a far harder fight for Callum Smith than they thought it was going to be, I believe. And it should have been just about Callum Smith keeping it long, using the feet, look for the angles, look for the counters, don't let John Ryder inside. The fact that John Ryder was able to get inside and even out jab the bigger man at times, Canelo must have thought, I'll definitely have some of that. Because if John Ryder, and no offense, I don't want to talk badly of John Ryder at all. I mean, great respect for the guy. But let's be honest, Canelo is in, you'd say that Canelo was in a higher league. You know, Canelo's in that pound for pound list. John Ryder isn't in that pound for pound list. So Canelo's looking at going, well, I'm pound for pound best or whatever. John Ryder, like this British guy, if he can get inside on this guy and rough him up and cause him all sort of problems, yeah, I'll have some of that, and I can maybe, you know, add to my highlight reel with a high level British fighter who's won the World Boxing Super Series, and maybe I can knock him out and really, you know, make a bigger statement there. So yeah, I think it's a hell of a point that maybe John Ryder has shown Canelo the way of doing this in quite spectacular fashion. That's what he'll be hoping for anyway, isn't it?
We could flip this, Benji, and say that in some ways a bad night at the office, or not his best night, could have been the best thing overall, because maybe people didn't want to fight him, and that might have lured Canelo in to think, hold on a minute, I've got a chance in. Sometimes it can work out for the better. You know, you can get those fights when you have an off night.
I was actually explaining this to the wife only yesterday, I think it was, because, you know, Tommy Fury boxed over the weekend, and he got quite, you know, he got a great knockout win. And a friend of mine called Ryan, who's I think he's had 6 pro fights now, similar weight class to Tommy Fury. Ryan would love to have the Tommy Fury fight. He'd absolutely love it. And they're both promoted by Frank Warren. And so my wife was saying to me, oh, is Ryan going to box Tommy Fury? And I said, well, probably not, because Ryan hasn't lost a fight yet. He's looked very good. He's been a monster in sparring against other boxers, pro boxers in the Birmingham area. And then you've got Tommy Fury, who is obviously a very popular person at the moment that Frank Warren's going to want to build and move along. So they're not going to put him in with someone who looks quite dangerous. They're going to put him in with people who they think, you know, he can level up against.
The business.
That's the business. So I was saying to the wife was like, but I don't get it. If Ryan carries on winning and that won't that earn him the fight? I said, well, unfortunately, boxing doesn't work that way.
Right.
I said, it might be better off that, you know, if Ryan was to look bad or take a beating in a sparring session or whatever, and word gets around, you know, maybe because he looks beatable, he's got more chance of getting the fight, if that makes sense, which is kind of ridiculous. But you know, you're absolutely right, because Callum Smith looks sort of beatable. And maybe looks to be on the slide since winning the World Boxing Super Series. Maybe that the team Canelo is like, all right, there's no better time than now. You know, let's have it now. You know.
And do you think, just to interject, do you think Oscar De La Hoya was saying to Canelo, look, mate, it was just a bad night at the office, mate. This guy really is dangerous. You know, don't do this right now. Right, and Canelo's like, no, I want to fight this guy. I believe I'm the pound for pound #1. I'll fight anybody. Do you think that was a hold up? Because obviously it's been delayed for quite a while now.
Possibly. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, we can speculate all day long what goes on in these sort of backroom meetings and things away from the camera. I think personally with Oscar De La Hoya, I think it all comes down to money with him. to be totally honest. He's all about what's going to make him the most money. And Canelo's his cash cow. Well, Canelo's a cash cow for a lot of people. And as we know, but any athlete, boxers or any athlete, have a limited career span. So you've got to look at the best way of milking that cow. But I don't know. I think you could be onto something there. There is a right time and a right place to fight any opponent. And you just look at Floyd Mayweather's career. It's not necessarily about who he fought; it's about when he fought them. You could say the same about Pacquiao. Some of the greatest boxers that have ever been. You look at the resume, and the resume looks fantastic, the names on it, but it doesn't give you the context of when they actually boxed these people. Did they get them on the way up, on the way down? What sort of fights had they had previously? I mean, let's face it, having Margarito on your resume as a win post Mosley is very different to having Margarito on your resume as a win pre Mosley. That makes sense.
No, 100%. Yeah.
So I think there could be a timing element in it, and it's sort of. I think people like Oscar De La Hoya are sort of waiting for the stars to align. So what we want is we want the best possible time to fight this person that we can beat them, but at the same time, they've still got to look good enough that we can sell it to the public that it's a dangerous fight. Because when we sell it to the public as a dangerous fight, we get more revenue that way. So it's finding that balance.
Good points, guys. Smash that like button. Benji is in the building. We're talking about Canelo versus Callum Smith, December the 19th. It's going down. Right, the viewers have got a few questions. All right, first one is a shout out to Big Up 0121, the Birmingham area, the Brummer, by the way. All right, big up Birmingham, and also big up my guy JK. He's a good lad also as well. Shaq and Pitters, big up. Shaq and Pitters, good lad again.
Yeah, hell of a boxer.
All right, Boom Boom Coil, Benji looking like Robin Williams in Jumanji.
I wish I had a basketball with Wilson on it. That'd be awesome. That was Castaway, wasn't it? That was Castaway.
Hey, we put that one up on the screen, man. That was funny, man. All right, so Boom Boom is also saying no pep talk. Absolutely not. De La Hoya was saying don't go near Callum Smith. Canelo walks through Smith. Walks through. Do you think? What I would say about Callum Smith? Okay, the head movement of Canelo is absolutely insane, right? He's mastered that now. Yeah. He's mastered that. But I would say this. Callum Smith has a very good jab. The way he doubles it up and he can move around with it for a big man. And he's got a good right hand as well. So if the game plan is right, and my dear old mate, Joe Gallagher, is known for putting good game plans into action, you never know. There could be an upset here.
I just before we came on, I tweeted to someone that basically the key to this, well, surely the key to this is Callum Smith has to keep it long, and he's got to have that busy lead hand, and he's almost got to box a perfect fight. He cannot let Canelo anywhere near him, and Canelo. Alternatively, Canelo's tactics is going to be the old Tyson tactics.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
Get the windscreen wiper going. Get inside. And then mess him up. So Callum's going to have to be like Lennox Lewis in this fight. He's going to have a really strong, busy, dominant jab with lots of lots of foot movement. Ring craft is going to be really important in this, because obviously Canelo's going to be looking to cut the ring off, back him into a corner, get him on the ropes. So creating space and moving around the ring and not getting caught into a corner or getting his back to the ropes when you don't want to be there is going to be imperative for Callum Smith. And let's face it, 12 rounds is a long time to be boxing in that manner, especially against Canelo. So in that Gallagher gym, they're going to have to work really hard on the fitness and leg endurance.
And it's not a long way away. It is a month away.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know what? I would almost say that during training, they might just have to do sessions where he's just constantly pumping out the jab.
Yeah.
You know, get used to throwing maybe 100 jabs per round. Yeah.
Oh,
It's wow. You know, because Canelo gets inside. Yeah.
It's gonna be like that scene out of Rocky where he's trying to get Rocky to box out, orthodox, and Mickey's tied his backhand up, and he's just like, "I want 500 jabs," and they're gonna have to do stuff like that. Why not?
Guys, get your questions in, smash that like button, and we'll do more of these lives. You know, we'll do more of these lives. Also, as well, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got Benji in the building, and we're talking Canelo versus Callum Smith, December the 19th. All right, so Che Wong Tamang, can you give your opinion on Deontay Wilder's challenge 5-weight heavyweight contenders to set Anthony Joshua? So did you see that list on that show, Brian Custer's?
I've read a tweet regarding some list. The only list that I saw from Deontay Wilder was that he listed Dillian Whyte 3 times that he wanted to box. So this is something completely different. So you'll have to enlighten me a little bit. Okay,
so I believe on that list was Dillian Whyte, Helenius.
Right.
Who else was on there? Andy Ruiz. And who's the last 2? Those are the 3 prominent names, all right? And I think there was a couple others, but on that list, what stood out for me was the fight with Dillian Whyte. Now, I say that because these two simply don't like each other. You know, these two would not go for a pint in their local pub together, right? They really don't like each other. And there's been so much that's been said over the past 2 years since Dillian Whyte beat, I think it was Lucas Brown for the silver, WBC silver at the O2, when he said, Deontay, let's get it. Deontay, where you at, baby? Let's go, baby. Let's go. So look, since that moment, there's been no love lost. And to be fair, I'm just trying to picture the build-up between the two fighters. Can you just imagine that build-up? For me, if I'm Wilder's team and I'm Eddie Hearn, I make that fight just like that. People will buy that fight straight away, right? Smash that like button if you like that fight, right? People are going to buy that fight straight away, regardless of what they think the outcome is going to be. Deontay Wilder talks trash. Dillian Whyte knows how to trash talk as well. Let's have it.
Oh, the press conferences would be glorious. And let's face it, that's how you sell a fight. I mean, you go back to Mayweather and McGregor. The press conferences in themselves were big events. The fight was, let's face it, the fight was nothing to write. No one ever watched that fight twice. I know I did. I watched it once. That was it. But I think it could be something similar. And I think you have, the boxing public, people like me and you, boxing's kind of our main sport or whatever. We, keep up to date with it. Obviously, we're going to tune in for that first press conference and be aware of it. But the wider public, I think all it would take is one press conference to be a complete circus, and then the wider public would get in on that fight. Make it happen. Because not only is it a great clash outside the ring, I think inside the ring, the way the two boxers go, I think it'd be, it could be an all-out war. Deontay Wilder, he wants to knock people out. That's his forte. That's his thing. He ain't in there to jab and move or do anything like that. He's in there to land the big right hand. Dillian Whyte, he's the body snatcher. He's looking for the body. But we know that he's susceptible himself, especially to uppercuts. So make it happen. I mean, it doesn't even matter if the fight lasts 1 or 2 rounds. For that 1 or 2 rounds, it's going to be absolutely explosive. And it could be a trilogy. Do a trilogy with them.
They can make a lot of money. People pay for that. Do you know what? I know Dillian Whyte wants to get revenge with Povetkin in January, but I don't know, with the way that this pandemic's going, things keep changing, and everything's all over the place. You know, if I was Dillian, I'll call Eddie Hearn and say, you know what? Make the fight now. Make the fight. Forget Povetkin. I'll do with him later. Make the fight.
Well, Povetkin's off now, isn't it? That's not happening.
Yeah, but I mean for January, because he's meant to fight in January. So forget that. Go for Wilder straight away.
No, I completely agree with you. Completely agree. You think Wilder really wants it?
He says that he wants it. He says that he wants, but I think Wilder, when he realizes the demand for the fight, right? He only mentioned it yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. When he sees that there's demand on social media for it, he'll keep pushing it, and then they'll keep trash talking online, and the demand will be so high that the supply's got to come.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing is, if you've got two boxers making it very clear they both want it, you know, it can't not happen in a way, you know, because if someone ducks out of it now, it's going to be really obvious who the ducker is. Makes sense. But, I mean, let's face it, Deontay Wilder at the moment is in need of some redemption. He's coming off a bad loss with Fury. He's not taken that loss well at all. I mean, I've seen all the stuff online about, you know, Fury allegedly cheating or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. What's your opinion on all that?
My opinion is to sit on the fence. People are always saying to me, what's your opinion? I'm like, look, my opinion is to stay on the fence. You know, I want to interview these guys, so I stay on the fence. But what I would say is they're very serious allegations. And I would just say, when you make allegations like that, you bring the proof at the same time. Because it's serious allegations. But I don't know. What I've seen online is there's a lot of American vloggers, and Wilder has his supporters that will champion those allegations, and then you've got the people that say, look, Fury won fair and square, you know, and he put on a fantastic performance. And you know what, fortunately, you know, I was there and I saw that performance, and it was incredible.
Really
incredible performance. Like, I stood there and I just had my mouth open, like, wow, look how Fury is boxing. This is ridiculous. Like, amazing. I expected Fury to do the herky jerky, you know, just be slick, but I didn't expect that. So should I say that was amazing. He got
on the front foot quite quickly, didn't he? I think that was the thing that surprised everyone. He got onto the front foot within the first couple of rounds and was the aggressor. He wasn't just trying to stay away from the right hand and jab his way to a victory. He was actually stepping in and really trying to hurt Deontay, and he did. And I think it was like, okay, Fury can actually, he's looking to hurt people now. He's not just looking to sort of bamboozle and be a bit slippery and tricky. He's actually looking to stop these guys now. And I think more than anything, that's what took Deontay Wilder by surprise. He's like, hold on a second, you're not meant to be hitting me this hard, you know.
And you know, going back to Canelo and Callum Smith. So Canelo, the first fight with Triple G, you know, he spends a lot of time on the ropes, you know, slipping, dodging, and being real tactical and crafty, right, about his work. But the second fight, we talk about the element of surprise. The second time round, Canelo said, look, I'm going to take the center of the ring, Triple G, and let's have it. And that caught Triple G by surprise as well, because Triple G is used to cutting off the ring, which I think he does excellently. Like, of all the boxers right now that cut the ring off, he's a master craftsman at that. But Canelo showed that, look, you can have different game plans and you can approach fights differently. And that's what Canelo showed, you know.
I mean, that was interesting, that second fight, because Triple G, he has started slow in a couple of fights previously. And I think that was something that maybe Canelo and his team were aware of. And they were like, well, if if he has a slow start and we can jump on him early and get those early rounds, let's do it. And we can maybe look at breaking him down. The only flaw that I saw with that game plan, and don't get me wrong, I thought Canelo boxed absolutely beautifully in that second Golovkin fight. But in the second half of the fight, I think he started to, tire quite a lot, especially in the championship rounds. I think he expended a lot of energy in those first 6 rounds, looking so good. I think if you'd dialed it back just ever so slightly, he would have still looked very, very good, but he might have had a little bit more down the stretch. But I mean, he won that second fight, so like he cares what I think.
Some people say that he won the first fight against Triple G won the first fight.
Yeah,
and I'm going to be honest. Watching that first fight, I thought Triple G nicked it. Right, I'll say that. Right, the second fight, yes, it was close, but Canelo won it. So you know what? Is there a trilogy in the future potentially? Do you want to see that? I mean, there were 2 good fights. Why not? Why not?
I would have liked to have seen it now because, and again, going back to timing of fights, I think if the trilogy happens, and I think there's a real chance of it happening, maybe next year or year after, I would be heavily favouring Canelo on that because of the age difference and things. And, talking about timing, it's hard to, maybe I'm just overly cynical, but I think that De La Hoya and Team Canelo are just like, let's leave Golovkin alone a bit. Let's let him age a little bit, and then we'll have the trilogy, and then you'll still be just at a peak or come just slightly off a peak, and you'll probably beat him quite easily, again, it's a timing thing. Don't get me wrong, I love to see the trilogy. I think those 2, the chemistry they had in the ring, the mix of styles, it's perfect. It was just beautiful to watch. But I think this third fight, if it happens, it's going to happen too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. With the pandemic, really hard to plan fights and make fights work. There's so much they got to consider. Guys, smash that like button. Benji, how long you got? Yeah, should we take it to an hour? Should we take it to an hour? 18 minutes?
I can do a bit more. I'm enjoying myself now.
Let's keep the flow going. We've got some good viewers that are watching. Guys, smash that like button. We're talking Canelo versus Callum Smith, announced for December the 19th. Wow, I'm excited. The big fights keep coming, and will Callum Smith pull off an upset? Let us know. All right, we'll go through some of the comments. All right. Judges were always leaning towards Canelo, and it may happen again this time against Smith. Do you know what? I did see something online, right? Probably about a month or 2 ago, saying that you need to knock Canelo out to get a draw.
I love that saying. I love that saying so much.
I mean, that's crazy, right? Look, Canelo's the biggest entity in boxing. If truth be told, Callum Smith is going to have to pull off a master performance. But again, he was the underdog in the World Boxing Super Series final, right? Against George Groves, some would say, a lot would say. And he pulled it off, and he pulled it off in spectacular fashion. I think the first time I saw Callum Smith was, I think he fought Luke Blackidge in Manchester. Yeah. That's the first time I was with Shaz at the time, right? And we saw Blackidge in the bar after. They were staying in the Hilton somewhere in Manchester. And I think Scott Quigger's in there. I think Ricky Hatton was in there. And I saw Blackidge with a black eye. And let me tell you this. I looked at Blackidge's black eye and I said, wow, Callum Smith is a bad motherfucker. Wow. I'm scared of that guy. He's got heavy hands. But I think he's got a bit more than that. He can actually box too. Watch his jab. His jab is really, really good. And for a big man, he gets about the ring nicely. And I think against Ryder, I think it was one of those performances where maybe underestimated Ryder a bit, and it kind of came through in his performance. And what, are you not allowed an off day? You know?
Well, I think a lot of people underestimate John Ryder. Throughout his career, John Ryder has caused upsets. He's even in the fights he's lost, he's given a great account of himself and always given his opponent a nightmare. I mean, if you're John Ryder, you've got to be really frustrated with things because he never seems to get the rub of the green. But the other thing though is just to really put a spanner in things. You look at the George Groves that Callum Smith stopped in the final of the Super Series. Was that the same George Groves that beat Chutinov? Was it the same George Groves that gave Carl Froch complete nightmares in that first fight? Because let's face it, that was George Groves' last fight, wasn't it? And he retired after that because he felt he wasn't the same. So it was Callum Smith's best night against someone who was on an off night on the decline. And again, the Canelo team will be taking this into account as well. So if they say, oh well, John Ryder gave him fits and he beat George Groves, but George Groves wasn't the same man, they might be lulling themselves into a false sense of security here. I think Callum Smith, when you look at his resume, when you look at certain performance and things, I think it'd be very easy for the Canelo team to underestimate him. And again, this is the top level of boxing. Some boxers, the better the opponent they're in with, the better they fight. It was, I believe that was the same with Ricky Hatton. The best we saw Ricky Hatton was that fight with Kostya Tszyu. He was like a man possessed that night. I'm really hoping that it's just the same for Callum Smith now that he's fighting a top 5 pound for pounder, biggest stage in boxing. What more motivation do you need to pull out a career best performance?
100%. I agree with that, Benji. Okay, so just to engage some of the viewers, the questions are coming in. What round? Ragman says, what round is Callum going down? Will he last longer than Liam?
Of course, Liam Smith's boxed Canelo as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Completely forgot about that.
About 3 years ago, I think it was. Yeah.
Completely forgot about that. It's the lockdown. It plays tricks on the mind. But that's a very interesting subtext to this whole fight, really, isn't it? That Liam has already gone and done it. You would have thought that Callum may fare better because he's the bigger brother. He's the bigger man. He's at a higher weight. But then again, you balance that with, well, since then Canelo's moved up in weight. Canelo's probably improved, but by how much? But I think it's a little bit disrespectful to sort of say, oh, what round is Callum Smith going down in? I don't like to entertain that too much because, as I say, let's get behind the British fighter. Let's say, come on, Callum, do your best and give a good account of yourself. Let's see what you do on that big stage.
You know what, Benji? I kind of like the whole idea, right? We just kind of remembered that his brothers fought Canelo already. Just imagine the build-up. I want to get revenge for my brother.
Well, that's it.
This is like a movie, man. The subplot continues.
Yes.
Yeah? I think Eddie Hearn will kill that. Eddie Hearn will kill that. Promotion-wise, he'll just say, yeah. This is a big fight against the pound-for-pound one. And yes, not only does he want to prove that he's the best, Callum Smith, but he wants to get revenge for his brother.
And the public buy into that. I mean, maybe not the boxing public so much, but that's what draws you casual in, and that's what you want. You want to draw the casuals in. I mean, I see a lot of stuff online, insulting people who are casual fans of boxing. We need those people. It's if you don't have casual fans, you don't have full arenas, you don't have stadiums. If it weren't for casual fans, you wouldn't have Anthony Joshua selling out Wembley Stadium. It just, my wife is the perfect example of a casual fan. She doesn't watch hardly any boxing. As soon as Anthony Joshua comes on, she's boxing fanatic all of a sudden. You know, you need these casual fans, and that whole storyline of Liam losing and now Callum's going to have a go. That's what casual fans buy into, and that's what makes big fights huge fights. You know.
You mentioned a casual fan. I remember once one of the viewers said to me, he was a casual, he said, when are we going to see Joshua against Mayweather? I said to him, mate, that ain't happening. All right. Guys, get your questions in. Smash the like button. Benji, we're having a party. We're having a party because Callum Smith is going to try and basically take on and defeat Canelo December the 19th. Big fight. I know Joe Gallagher right now is in the gym, you know, working on strategy. I saw his Twitter feed earlier. He said day one. And that means day one of devising and preparing Callum Smith for the biggest fight of his life. Guys, smash that like button. Let's get these questions in with Benji. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left before we head out. So, yeah, look, Canelo. He is, in many people's eyes, the pound for pound number one. All right. But what do you think he can kind of do more to cement that position? Because I know he's got a number of names on his resume and he's done what he can. He's done what he can. But at super middle, he beat Rocky Fielding, right? Yeah. So in terms of the super middleweight weight class, there's work to be done, and he needs to prove himself at this weight class and fight the man, which is generally known as Callum Smith.
Yeah, I mean, for Canelo now, it is all got to be about legacy. Sorry, did I say Callum Smith? I meant to say Canelo. Canelo, it should be all about legacy now. And I've just pulled up boxing rankings and things now, and you look at super middleweight, Callum Smith, you've got there Billy Joe Saunders, David Benavidez. That would be an interesting fight. But other than that, really, looking over super middleweight, there's not a hell of a lot that sticks out. Daniel Jacobs, maybe. There's not a hell of a lot that sticks out that are going to sort of be those legacy fights that are going to cement him as an undisputed pound for pound number one. Even looking up at like heavyweight, there's not a hell of a lot there. I mean, you can only fight what's sort of in and around your arena, if you like. You look at people in the sort of welterweight and light welterweight and those lower divisions. There seems to be a hell of a lot more talent and a hell of a lot more big fights, you know, career-defining fights available in those lower weight classes. This is why I think it's slightly easier to. I mean, it's a bit of a silly thing to say. Be easier to be a pound for pound fighter in the lower weight classes, just because you have more other pound for pound fighters in those lower classes. Am I talking absolute nonsense here, or is this making sense?
No, I get you.
Which is, I mean, we see Lopez, Lomachenko, Spence, Crawford. These are all smaller guys that are considered pound for pound because they're mixing with other people, you know, who are highly regarded, if not pound for pound, in their own weight classes. So I think after Callum Smith, I do think it's difficult for Canelo to look for any more of these sort of blockbuster fights, because there's just doesn't seem to be the names.
But you know where
heavyweight in that now.
Well, yeah, exactly. The names, I believe. So probably for Canelo, if he's successful against Callum Smith, then it's a permanent move to 175, because that's where all the names are. Yeah, imagine Canelo versus Beterbiev.
Yeah, you got Beterbiev over there. Yeah,
smoking hot. Or Bivol, smoking hot.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I definitely stand corrected there. Definitely.
So
Beterbiev and Bivol would be good fights.
So maybe this is part of the long-term plan, to try and clean up at super middle, and then stay permanently at light heavy, where there's a variety of big fights.
Well, do you think Buatsi will come up in time?
Buatsi, shout out Joshua Buatsi, that's my guy all day long. Again, Buatsi's still having his learning fights. We saw against Callum, that was a really good test. And I believe his advisors are doing the right thing. They're not just throwing him in, they're feeding him in. Because once you're there at, competing at that level, that's it. You can't come down. So I believe everything's about timing, and Buatsi's time will come.
Well, Buatsi might have this absolutely perfect, because if Canelo goes up to light heavyweight, dominates for a couple of years, while Buatsi's bringing his own stock up, Buatsi might get him at the perfect time, where Canelo's just coming off, is on the slide a little bit. Buatsi's coming to peak. Could be perfect for him.
That's boxing, and everyone needs that sort of signature name on their resume. I think we saw with Terence Crawford, he got Kell Brook on his CV, over the weekend. And before that fight, people were saying, well, yeah, he's pound for pound number one, blah, 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 but he hasn't really got much on his resume at 147. Well, right now, Kell Brook's on that resume.
Yeah.
And Amir Khan, the two Brits.
Yeah.
So when you start to look at things, you kind of unravel and say, well, he's got some credible names on his resume now. And then, but obviously the critics are going to say, yeah, but these guys are coming at the end of their career, blah, blah, blah. But listen, Mayweather the same, Canelo the same, they put together these records, and sometimes the fighters are, not at their peak when they defeat them, That's boxing.
I mean, for me personally, I think the fight that I maybe most want to see in world boxing is Crawford and Spence. I find it hard to think of another fight that I want to see more than that one. I think that really tells us who's the boss. You know what I mean?
I get that. For me right now, I'll be honest with you, the lightweights is my division that I'm interested in for the next 5 years. Teofimo, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Tank. That's where my big interest is for the future. I mean, these guys will move up as well.
They need a tournament. Those names you just listed off in a Super Series type tournament, that's what we need.
The business, though. Benji, the business.
Yeah.
The business, man.
But come on, let's just fantasize just for 1 second. As a Super Series style tournament with those names, how amazing would that be?
Amazing.
Seeing them would be impossible, nearly, but
Yeah, and to be honest, okay, so Canelo's gone. Oscar De La Hoya, Ryan Garcia is going to be the main crown, main jewel in the crown, shall I say. And I don't see Ryan Garcia being risked. I think he'll have his fight against Luke Campbell, and they'll feed him through if he's successful as well and build him up. He's already got the followers. He's already got the traction.
Yeah.
So I see Golden Boy managing him like they did Canelo also as well.
Well, that would be the idea, but I mean, Luke Campbell, he's not going to walk through him. You know what I mean?
Not a mug. Yeah. Luke Campbell is not a mug, and a lot of people out there online are saying that Luke Campbell provided the blueprint to defeat Lomachenko, because again, Lomachenko, for all his greatness, watching that fight, I've watched that fight a number of times, and I think that night I was at O2 do media work as well, and I'll tell you what, Luke Campbell gave a bloody good account of himself.
Yeah.
Bloody good. And for me, that fight was a lot closer than the scorecard said for me on the night. But I'm not a judge, but from what I saw, Luke Campbell was very good that night. So that's going to be a stiff test for Ryan Garcia.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, get your questions in. Smash that like button. Benji, when you're ready to depart, we'll just tell the viewers that we're off. But We'll keep it rolling. We'll keep it
Yeah.
rolling as long as you say so.
I might just have to turn my phone on just for 1 second, just to make sure I haven't locked the wife. Don't want to lock the wife out the house.
No props, no props. All right. Ragman, is Canelo well known in the UK? The British hate him for beating so many of their own. Is that something you'd agree with?
Is Canelo well known in the UK? Well, amongst boxing fans, anyone I'd say anyone who's got like a Sky Sports subscription to watch boxing, anyone who's a Fury fan, any boxing fan's going to be known, going to know who Canelo is. If I walk out the door and go into the local town centre and just ask random people, do you know who Canelo Alvarez is? Maybe not. I wouldn't be that confident that the average Joe on the street who doesn't watch boxing would know who he was. So it's one of these things, I think Canelo's very well known within the boxing community. Anyone who watches boxing quite regularly. Do the British hate him for beating so many of their own? No. I mean, if you're a boxing fan, you appreciate good boxing, and Canelo hasn't. Like there was a German, I think it was a German fighter called Sven Ottke back in the day, and a number of Brits, Robin Reed, David Starry, a number of Brits went over to Germany to fight Sven Ottke, and Sven Ottke got his hand raised. Joe Calzaghe always wanted to fight him. Sven Ottke point blank refused. Now, the reason why boxing fans in Britain hated Sven Ottke wasn't because he was beating British fighters. It was the way he was beating them. It was the most corrupt display of in-ring boxing that I will ever see. It was like the ref was in on it, the judges were in on it. It was awful. So that's why I hated Sven Ottke, because I thought he displayed the very, very worst in boxing, and he embraced it. Canelo, I don't feel that way about him. When I can't say that I've seen Canelo beat a British fighter and then I've gone, well, he won that by dodgy refs, dodgy judges, cheating. When Canelo beat Amir Khan, when he beat Liam Smith, they were legitimate. There was no disputing it. There was no, oh, well, he hit him with an elbow or he hit him lower. It was fair and square. You can't hate a boxer who's winning fights fair and square, within the rules of the game. So I don't think Brits hate him at all. I think we appreciate him. If we're boxing fans, we should appreciate him.
There was a time when Canelo failed the drugs test and was getting a lot of hate. Do you remember that? Was it the Mexican meat?
Yeah, the Mexican beef.
Chiquitos.
Sorry?
Chiquitos, I think it was.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I do remember all that. And I think back at the time I did a number of videos about it. It wasn't a good look or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, really. I mean, no one's ever going to support cheating in boxing. Whether it's using performance enhancing drugs, whether it's loading gloves or anything like that, no one's going to like that. The thing is, all you can do is hope that the testing is rigorous, and that when Callum Smith and Canelo go into the ring, they're both clean. That's all you can hope for, and you hope that the measures are in place to make sure both are clean and no one's cheating. But as far as I'm concerned, with high-level athletes in any sport that are making huge amounts of money from being at the top of their sport, no one is above suspicion in my eyes. If you can think of a high-level athlete in any sport, if you told me, oh, they failed the drug test, I wouldn't be surprised, because there is so much at stake for these guys to be at the top and to stay at the top, because they've got to keep the sponsors happy, they've got to put food on the table, they've got to stay in the lifestyle with the Lamborghinis and all this sort of thing. So there is a huge incentive to cheat. I mean, when the whole thing about Lance Armstrong came out, I wasn't massively surprised. I love cycling, I love Tour de France. I was a fan of Lance Armstrong and what he did. But when you look at the Lance Armstrong story of him having cancer to winning these Tour de France's and saying, well, it's a miracle, you're no longer surprised. If that, again, I'm going on off on massive tangents again, but I think the bottom line is I just hope that drug testing is constantly improving and becoming more stringent in boxing, so that when we get two people in the ring, we are seeing a fair, legitimate fight. But yeah, no one wants to support a cheater.
All right, you heard it from the man himself, Benji. Okay, so Ragman saying Canelo just said in a Spanish interview that his goal is to be undisputed at super middleweight. Achievable? Absolutely.
Absolutely achievable, because of when you look at the super middleweight rankings, there's not a hell of a lot there. All you can say is, well, where the sort of, I mean, looking at it now for the super middleweight, Callum Smith, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, WBC on Fight News is currently listed as vacant. David Benavidez being number one. So over the next couple of years, Canelo, Plant, Saunders, and Benavidez, you could see him winning those fights. Really, it's not beyond the realms of possibility to be undisputed super middleweight.
Okay, something tells me there's going to be a bit of a twist, but
always
we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. It's hard enough for these fights to get made in the first place. I mean, the amount of time we've waited for Canelo to get an opponent has been a very long time, and it must have been frustrating for him as well. So he's a free man now, and it just got a lot easier, I suppose.
The other thing is as well with Canelo, he's been waiting all this time for a fight, but he seems to live in the gym. You see, his intensity in the gym, he doesn't seem to be sat around the house getting fat waiting for a fight to come. He's just constantly grafting. Mark of a champion.
That's it. Championship lifestyle, consistency, persistence, that shows the mark of greatness.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we've got 5-6 minutes left. We're going to take your questions. As always, get your questions in. Smash that like button, more importantly. We're getting through lockdown together, talking Canelo versus Callum Smith, and we're trying to provide you, with that in-house entertainment. Okay, so let's look for some of these good questions. Smash that like button, guys. All right, D. Obianu. Achievable, but when you're giving opponents 4 weeks notice using PEDs and having favorable judges. Wow, that's a bit harsh, mate. That's a bit harsh. Bloody, do you know what? I ain't answering that question, but Benji, over to you, man. Listen, I'm on a fence. I'm sitting on a nice fence. You know what I mean? That's what I'm sitting. I'm not sitting in the chair. I'm sitting on the fence.
Look, again, on the PEDs issue, I just hope that both boxers are being tested and obeying testing rules on the lead up to the fight. So, just looking at this specific fight and not trying to go back over history and that. For this specific fight, if neither boxer tests positive, we have to sort of say, well, both are clean. So that's on the PED thing. On the 4 weeks notice thing, first of all, boxers at Canelo's level, with his team of promoters and what have you behind him, they are going to do what they can to tilt things in their favor. They're going to do that. I mean, Mayweather did it, Pacquiao does it, everyone does it. You've got the A side and the B side. Personally, I hate those terms, but we live in that world. The A side is always going to have things tilted or do their best to tilt things in their favor against the B side. Do I believe that Callum Smith has only had 4 weeks' notice for this fight? I find that a little bit hard to believe. I don't think, Callum Smith got a phone call last night and said, "Oh, by the way, it's on and we're just about to put it on Twitter." The negotiation for these fights go on for a long, long time. I wouldn't be surprised if Callum Smith knew about this fight or the potential date of this fight 5 to 6 weeks ago. That wouldn't surprise me. So I think the 4 weeks notice thing is maybe a little bit of a red herring. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Frankie, you disagree with that. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm being too optimistic.
The only thing I would say is this 4 weeks thing has been happening quite a bit.
Yeah.
But again, if you're a fighter and you're going to win the biggest fights, you live in the gym. Bernard Hopkins, you live in the gym, you stay ready all the time. So, Callum Smith hasn't got to his level by not staying in the gym. So these guys that are serious about their career and being the best of the best are always in the gym anyway. So it doesn't matter to some people. That's what I would say. That's
I mean, personally, if I was in Callum Smith's shoes, I never will be, because I'm never going to be a pro athlete and certainly not going to be a professional boxer. But you sort of think to yourself, well, if I was in Callum Smith's shoes and the possibility of a Canelo fight was on the horizon, it would be constantly in his mind. So if there's no opponent inked in, every time he goes into the gym, I'd be amazed if he wasn't constantly thinking whilst in the gym, oh, it could be Canelo soon. It could be Canelo soon. And that's got to be a motivating factor to keep him in shape, because he'll know that, he might not get a lot of notice. He knows that this thing could just spring up. So, again, it's like you just said, Frankie, he's going to be in the gym. He's not going to be like waking up this morning and go, oh, damn, I'm really fat and I've just been on a lockdown diet for the last year. I've got 4 weeks to get 5 stone off. I don't think he's going to be in that situation or that position. I think Canelo would love him to be, but he's not going to be.
The only thing I would say, all right, we mentioned this earlier. Okay, so suppose he was, let's say, I don't know, 8 pounds or 10 pounds over his fighting weight in a month. All right, remember, he's big at the weight already. All right, and he's a big man. All right, surely there's a bit of a factor in this. Is he bang on weight right now? That's the question, because he's got squeezed down to super middle. For me, he's a light heavy. He's got squeezed down a bit in a month. Well, depends how far gone he is, isn't it? It depends.
I would expect in the week before the fight, leading up to the weigh, going on what I've heard and read about boxers making weight in the past. And I'm not, please, I'm not trying to put myself out as some expert on this, because I'm not. But from what I've heard and read from boxers in the past, is a boxer can lose around 7 pounds in the last week, in the week leading up to the weigh-in. They're just trying to boil down the weight. The UFC lot lose even more than that, 48 hours before a fight, because they're all taking hot baths and saunas and all this sort of thing. So let's say that Callum Smith's going to lose half a stone, 7 pounds in that last week. So going into that last week, he can't be any more than sort of 12 and a half stone. He could easily lose a stone in 3 weeks before that. So really, Callum Smith doesn't want to be anything over 13 and a half stone to 14 stone right now. If he's over 13 and a half, especially if he's over 14 stone right now, I would be worried. I'd be worried.
But I think the positive thing to remember is he's got Joe Gallagher in his corner, and Joe will be on Callum. He'll be on him to say, look, you've got an opportunity here. Stay ready.
Absolutely.
And he pays attention to finer details. Yep.
These are pros. I mean, I'm just I'm an amateur coach at the local boxing club. I coach young kids and that. I like boxing. I've made weight myself for sport way in the past when I used to do weightlifting. But I am not a professional boxing coach. I'm not a professional boxer. Joe Gallagher, Callum Smith, they are professionals. They know how to do this. So some beardy guy on YouTube talking about, I know jack compared to them. So they'll have a very specific plan of how they're going to get him from whatever weight he is now down to fight weight, and the key point is being as strong and effective as possible, not having that weight loss affect performance.
All right, guys, smash that like button. Get those likes in. Let's keep us going. And we'll do more of it. Smash that like button. All right, there's 58 people in the room.
I'm going to stay here all day, Frankie. I'm going to stay with you all day.
Right. Come on, support the underdog. Smash that like button. Get your questions in. The last 3 questions we're going to take. So the first one of that 3 is, Audi, Elias TT, Smith needs 3 months for a fight of that magnitude. He should not arrive at camp over a stone overweight. So does he need 3 months for Canelo? It's a good point.
Well, in an ideal world, yeah. Again, Ricky Hatton always used to try and have a 3-month camp. There was one fight against a guy called Wilfredo Vilches where he had something like an 8-week camp. For some reason, there was a very quick turnaround from his previous fight to that one, and he looked awful that night. And he says, I'm never doing this again. So in an ideal world, I think boxers would love to have 3-month camps. Pacquiao, I think, he likes doing an 8-week one. But we don't live in that world. And when an opportunity like this comes, you've got to take it. Because let's face it, if this opportunity came along, even with 4 weeks' notice, and Callum Smith said, no, we're not having that. We know how fickle the boxing community is. What would people be saying about Callum Smith over there and here? Oh, well, Billy Joe Saunders would have taken it at 4 weeks, or XYZ would have taken it 4 weeks. Callum Smith doesn't want it, blah, 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 blah. So, rather than say, well, he needs, a 3-month camp, which would be ideal, we just have to sort of say, well, good on him for taking it and all the best,
All right. So, Alex. Hey, Alex, how you doing, mate? Do you think the fight is going to be much different than the others? Okay. For who? Canelo or Callum Smith? Okay, so I don't know. I think what Alex is trying to say is Canelo has been quite dominant of late. Is Callum Smith going to change that by pulling off a master performance against Canelo?
I think the fight is going to be much different than others. I think that Callum Smith has to be much better than he was against John Ryder. Put it that way. I think he has to be different. I think he needs to. I think he needs to pull off an almost perfect performance. I think from Canelo's point of view, he wants this to be another night at the office. He goes in, shows the head movement, shows the combination punching, pulls out the full repertoire and finishes the fight, well within the distance. So I think from Callum Smith's point of view, it's got to be a very, very different fight. From Canelo's point of view, he wants it as business as usual.
Definitely. Okay. All right. Audi A-list TT. Pep, do you think Canelo trained for 4 weeks? I think Canelo is at the top of the game and the top of the sport for a reason. I think he trains all year round, basically. But I also think Callum Smith actually has been training for a long time as well. And we'll find out from Joe Gallagher. Hopefully we can get an interview with Joe Gallagher and he'll talk about the preparations. He's a wily old fox. I'm sure he won't go into too much detail, but I don't think Callum's just been training only for 4 weeks, or it's going to do a 4-week camp. I think he's been prepping himself, and I know Canelo's been prepping himself. So
I've never seen an overweight looking or a fat looking Callum Smith. Whenever I've seen Callum Smith, whether he's been, whether it's in the flesh, whether it's on TV doing punditry stuff, I've never seen him with a belly. That tells you a lot, really.
Hey, and one person I would say as well, who anytime I've seen him, he's always been in tip-top shape, is Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
And how long has he been boxing now? And I've never seen him out of shape. And let me tell you, I think I saw AJ training in the gym about a month ago, before the lockdown. And let me tell you this, he's at the top of the sport for a reason. He trains really hard. And he's very meticulous of what he does in the gym. The warm downs, the stretching, the type of conditioning. And you're doing a lot of lateral movement stuff with Angel Fernandez. And this guy is unified heavyweight champ because he takes his job seriously. And if you want to do videos and stuff whilst he's training, that's not happening. You have to wait until he's finished. That's how seriously he takes his job.
Well, so, the head coach from my local boxing club, he went to AJ's gym because when AJ was on the Olympic team, the Olympic team trained at the local amateur boxing club because it's an England boxing hub that they used. So our head coach went over to see AJ, and funnily enough, it was just before my wedding. On my wedding day, the party, the reception in the evening, our head coach came in and everything. I was having a couple of drinks and I said, "Oh, you were at Anthony Joshua's gym last week," like, because I was showing the wife, because the wife loves our head coach now. Anyone who speaks to Anthony Joshua, my wife loves. I don't know what she sees in him, but yeah. I said, "So how's AJ getting on?" He says, "Ben, you wouldn't believe the way he trains." He said we watched him train and he was literally shaking. He pushed himself and his body to such a limit that he was physically shaking at the end of the session. And then once he'd warmed down, chilled out, and everything, he had a chat with everyone. So you're the second person I know that's seen AJ train and said that he's just an absolute monster in the gym.
Exactly. I think we'll leave it there. Benji, do you know what? I think, guys, smash that like button. If those likes are high enough, then maybe we'll do some more daytime lives, with Benji when we're in lockdown. So we want to get you through lockdown, provide that entertainment, and interact with the viewers, which is the most important thing. Guys, thanks for attending. Until the next live. Benji, it's been a pleasure. Remember, subscribe. Pep Talk UK. We out here. Thank you, guys. Thank you.